to FBI hate crime statistics, there were 6,604 hate crimes reported in 2009. 18.5% of those were based on sexual orientation and involved violence in some way, according to DoSomething.org. Here I'm going to discuss the history of gay rights through the last few decades and into where we currently are as a country and resolving this nationwide debate, particularly regarding gay marriage. Most people don't realize that this issue of gay rights and gay marriage have been an ongoing process dating primarily back to the 1970s and have continued to progress through the 1980s and 90s to where we are now. 5 states have legalized gay marriage, plus Washington, D.C., and New York and California recognize out-of-state marriages, although you still can't actually get married there, according to Time.com. During the 1970s, the United States saw the first major movements for gay marriage to be implemented across the nation. In 1970, Jack Baker and James Michael McConnell applied for a marriage license in Hennepin County, Minnesota. The license was denied and appeals to the Supreme Court, but they refused to hear the case. The next year, they managed to obtain a license from a different Minnesota county and were married by a Methodist minister in Minneapolis. According to Funkawano's New World Encyclopedia, Harvey Milk, who's gotten a little laughs over there, became the first openly gay male to win a public seat in office in California in 1977. He won a position on the Board of Supervisors and quickly became a hero to the homosexual community, devoting his year in office to implementing a city ordinance that bans discrimination based on sexual orientation. Because he was a target of death risk, he stated, "If a bullet should enter my brain, let that bullet destroy every closet door." He was murdered in 1978 and is now viewed as a martyr to the gay rights movement. An SF Bay Times writer named Kim Kassar reported that on May 21st, 1979, the first white riots broke out in response to Milk's murder by Dan White. The riots took over Castro Street in San Francisco, protesting White's charge because it had been reduced from first-degree murder to involuntary manslaughter, so he'd be out of jail in only a few years. Gay rioters destroyed City Hall and set it on fire and torched several police cars. And the chaos went on for hours and was begun by the crowd on Castro Street and the residents of Polk, which was a gay neighborhood in San Francisco and the central location for several different gay celebrations. So the 1970s eventually graduated to the 80s and 90s, and during that, the gay rights movement experienced even more breakthroughs. These 2 decades saw several laws enforced in the nation supporting gay and lesbian equality, although legalization of marriage was still yet to actually be implemented. In 1987, San Francisco Chronicle journalist Randy Schultz wrote a book, It had been played on politics, people, and the AIDS epidemic. And according to book reviews written on madviews.wordpress.com, this book discusses the concept that ignorance of the gay community was fueling the spread of the AIDS epidemic. And because the majority of AIDS cases were reportedly among gay men, the media refused to acknowledge the severity of this issue. And the book was released for critical acclaim and eventually became a nationwide bestseller. According to Time.com, in 1993, Clinton declared that he would reverse the executive order prohibiting gays and lesbians from entering the military. And this issue became huge during his first week of presidency because people in the Pentagon and on Capitol Hill were opposed to his position, but it was eventually passed into law. And it's a pretty well-known policy. Don't ask, don't tell. That one not right. And it basically meant that government would no longer ask military recruits about their sexual orientation. So as long as gays didn't actually tell anyone about their sexual preference or engage in gay acts, they could still serve. In 1996, the U.S. Defense of Marriage Act was signed and made into law. And according to NCSL.org, which stands for National Conference of State Legislatures, reports that the act states that neither state nor federal government may consider same-sex marriage as an actual legitimate one, regardless of whether or not it is legal in another state. Since 1996, many other states have also established laws approving same-sex marriage, as well as the legal recognition of same-sex marriages as legitimate forms in another jurisdiction. But currently, the legalization of gay marriage is undergoing major advancements and is recognized as valid in 7 states, but nationwide recognition still has a really long way to go. So in May 2004, Marshall Hanson and Susan Shepard became the first same-sex couple in the U.S. to complete a state-sanctioned marriage application in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Although the Hooker marriage would trigger nationwide acceptance of gay marriage legalization, the heated debate over same-sex marriage is still continuing to go on. California Supreme Court later overturned the state's ban on gay marriage in mid-May of that year. 27 states have passed constitutional bans on gay marriage, and only 10 have granted rights to gay couples. According to polls taken across the United States, the majority of Americans, and California is included in this, they remain opposed to gay marriage. 13 states passed anti-gay marriage initiatives in the following election in response to the 2003 victory in Massachusetts. In 2008, Prop 8 passed in California, and it defined marriage as solely between a man and a woman. It overturned the ruling that had just passed in May 2008, allowing gays to marry according to NCSL.org. In November of that year, 52.5% of California voters voted for the passage of Proposition, so the words, only marriage between a man and woman is valid or recognized in California were out of the Constitution, according to whatisprop8.com. It had been challenged early the next year in 2009, but Supreme Court upheld it in May of that year. In August 2010, a federal district judge in California ruled that Prop 8 violated the equal protection provisions of the Constitution. So obviously the issue of gay marriage has been going on for several decades, and it started primarily back in the 1970s and has continued through the 80s and 90s to where we are now. So 5 states have legalized gay marriage, plus Washington, D.C., and in New York and California, they recognize out-of-state marriage, but you can't actually get married there if you're a gay couple. So now you're more well informed of the history of the gay rights movement and where we currently are as a country with granting gays the right to marry. Although gay rights and legalization of same-sex marriage have come a long way in the last few decades, the country is still far from legalizing it nationwide. It's an extremely controversial, ongoing debate that will hopefully eventually be resolved during the